Joining the table, Republican Congressman from California and House Majority Whip Representative Kevin McCarthy.
What do you think of that? I know. I want to ask you first. What did you think about the president going up those? The government is open.
My daughter's calling.
What do you think?
Weird.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Hey, Carly, I'm asking your mom a tough question on you.
But didn't you
she told you that she works from 6 to 9 in the morning?
She just calls anyway on her way to school. All right.
Have a good day in school. She'll
call her back.
Okay.
I don't know why she does that, but.
So, were you proud of that moment? Like, was that like, wow, that is a and that speech with Washington Monument behind him? What do you think?
What you doing?
No, I'm just asking. What do you think? Look at this. Oh, he's showing them. Now that's leadership.
Park Ranger in Chief.
Bound up the stairs, Parks and Recreation. You got nothing on the. What do you think? I'm just asking you a question. What do you think?
I think it was nice. It seemed a little like we weren't hanging on. I mean, Eugene, help me out here. We weren't kind of hanging on the edge of our seat, wondering if the Lincoln Memorial would be open.
It was not the most stirring moment of the Obama presidency.
Kevin, where did you go when it was
the place that was actually had a door?
A door. A World War. Did you go to the World War I Memorial, which is that little thing hidden in the. Where did you go?
You know, I got to ask the question too, and it wasn't the first of my concern of whether the monuments were open that day. You know, you're talking about troops not being paid, and we're worried about the Washington Monument being open. I mean, it's
a symbol. Come on.
He goes from a commander-in-chief to the park ranger-in-chief. And I don't think that's what the country's quite looking at.
I don't think that was the intention.
In political terms, closing the Washington Monument, closing the Lincoln Memorial is always kind of the the nuclear option of a shutdown. Now,
live shot of the Jefferson Memorial, and this just into NBC News.
Open. Yeah, I know.
Still open.
I know. Look, it's this is the cherry blossom season in Washington. There are scads and scads of tourists who came here who were very happy to be able to visit those monuments.
So
there we go.
Good.
So Kevin, what is
Kevin has charts.
We averted the shutdown. Great news. It gets tougher from here, though, doesn't it? When you start talking about the debt ceiling being raised, a lot of freshmen don't want to do that.
No, you don't want to do that. But think about what we're going to do this week. We're going to vote on the CR, we're going to cut billions, and we're going to vote on the budget and cut trillions all this week. It'll be from Wednesday to Friday.
Well, the president also is putting his plan out, right?
Well, no, he's putting out plan number 2. It's the sequel. I mean, when have you ever known a president to change their budget before a vote's even been done? Now, that gives a lot of credit to Ryan's budget. It gives a lot of credit to the cultural change of the last election. More than just an election, it's a cultural change here in Washington now.
Were you pleased that the president worked with John Boehner? They seem to cooperate pretty well during the shutdown.
I think people expect that to happen. But remember what happens. John Boehner goes into a room, all staff is leave, so it's the president, the vice president, and Harry Reid. It's 3 against 1. And he walks out of the room. It's not the best deal in the world, but it's moving in a much better direction than we've ever thought it was going to move before.
Gene, what about as we go toward the debt ceiling and the much bigger deal? Do you think you think we have got a partnership between Barack Obama and John Boehner that can actually work?
I think there's a partnership that might cobble something together, actually work in terms of making meaningful progress on figuring out how this government economy relationship is going to work in the next 20 years. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I remember Chuck Todd saying the day after, I think it was on Meet the Press, saying that actually the relationship is worse off.
Well,
really? Why?
I'm
Why would it be worse off?
Well, because it might have been very difficult, and the two of them maybe
don't you become closer when you have difficult times? I mean, if you finally come to if you finally come to an agreement, don't you grow from
Tell me about that.
Yeah, you do. No, actually,
don't you have a
listen, they averted a shutdown, but you're now claiming that Republicans are asking the quote impossible of Barack Obama. You say their inspired rhetoric, which has worked so well that they would be crazy to abandon it, has been to take a wildly extreme position and stick to it with the obstinacy of a mule. This is nice. When Democrats offer to negotiate, Republicans increase their demands. The result is that they shift the battlefield and end up fighting on terrain so friendly that they literally can't lose. Here's your mule right here. Okay,
I complimented him.
He does not look stubborn as a mule.
I think you guys did a very good job of shifting the terms of the debate from whether to cut to how much to cut, from 33 million to a billion, rather, to 61 billion. trillion as a target, and ending up around 39.40. I thought that worked very well.
What are you doing?
It's not enough by any stretch of the means, but when you've been talking about government spending trillions to finally government cutting, that's the first step. You crawl before you walk, and you walk before you run, and that's why this week we're going to start running.
Here's the question I have, and I guess it'll be answered in the next few months. You talked about the kind of cultural revolution or cultural shift in Washington. That's one thing. Out in the country, there is also a feeling about a sense of urgency about the deficit, but people like their government benefits. People like their government programs. A lot of people like things the way they are. And so when this cultural revolution runs into that entrenched culture, what happens?
I think Washington's further behind than where the rest of the country's at. If you look from governors across this country, you look from city councils to mayors, they're making fundamental change about the debt. They're discussing the pensions. They're discussing the top questions that Washington has avoided. It wasn't till Republicans actually led, even though we're the smallest here, we led with our budget talking about the tough decisions. Everyone said politically, don't touch it. Well, you know what? The president is redoing. He's taking a mulligan today and redoing because he's been intimidated from one step to start talking about it.
You know, we just talked to Grover Norquist, and he pointed out, you know, up in New York, Governor Cuomo, Democrat, did not raise taxes, cutting spending. And I asked him, and he said 235 members, Republican members of the House, have signed the No New Taxes pledge. In other words, we will not vote to raise taxes. Now, are you one of the folks that signed his No New Taxes pledge? And does that mean you will oppose any tax increase in any budget deal, and the Republicans will back you up on that?
Look, yes, because it's not a revenue problem. This is a spending problem in Washington. Just in the 2 years that the Democrats have controlled Washington, they added more than $3 trillion to our debt. His current budget would add another $9 trillion. You cannot sustain that. I mean, again, I brought another graph.
But obviously, you agree with me, though. Republicans added $6 trillion during the Bush era, right?
Yeah. When I ran in 2006, I ran against the Republicans and the Democrats. This is a change that has been building. Is it not something that we learned? Look at our freshman class. That's 1/3 of our class of our conference is totally new.
But see, another way of looking at it is that this is a mandate problem, or at least that's the issue, because people mandate that their government do things that people don't want to pay for, don't want to pay enough for. So, you know, just looking at revenue and spending in a vacuum, aside from what people expect of their government, I think is
that's also why on the Ryan budget, it's more than just about numbers. It's a path to prosperity. It talks about an economy. Where the president's budget, he leaves us at the highest corporate tax rate in the world. So how do we compete as a nation? Ryan lowers it. It puts an energy policy in there. So what are the revenues into the government if unemployment is 4% instead of 9%?
But let me ask you about that, because we've been bringing it up. There are a lot of corporations. One that used to be our parent company. They're a half owner now, but GE pays
Why can't we close those loopholes?
Right. So you talk about reducing the corporate tax tax rates, and I agree we need to be competitive, but you can't be more competitive than 0%.
If you're going to lower it, you're going to close loopholes. If you're going to lower it, and think for one moment, we understand. I come from California, so every week I hear of a new company leaving California, going to another state. We understand states compete with one another. I mean, I watched the Masters and Tiger Woods. Grew up in California, went to college in California. He left the day he turned pro. The Williams sisters learned to play tennis.
Lives in Florida.
Exactly.
0%.
LeBron James, was he really going to go to Chicago or New York when he could get 9% more for playing in there? The Yankees, their best sluggers live in Florida. And so the difference is America needs to learn to compete with other countries. That's what we don't think about as a nation.
All right,
I'm sorry, Pat, go ahead.
Look, in the U.S. tax code, 1/3 of American tax workers have been dropped completely off the tax roll.
Like 47%.
Okay, you go up to 47%. pay zero federal income tax because they use credits and other things. So you got half the country gets an enormous part of the benefits and pays none of the burden. Now, are you going to go after those? Hold it.
You got a
congressman.
You lower the tax base and you broaden it. And if you want a great example, okay,
right.
California is a microcosm of the United States. 12% of the nation lives in California, but 32% of the nation's welfare lives in California. California gets 25% of their entire budget from 144,000 people out of 37 million. Mm-hmm. That shows you if you punish wealth creation, you get less of it. If you reward government assistance, you get more of it, but you cannot maintain that. Mm-hmm. You cannot sustain that, and that's where the nation is going.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the interest of accuracy, that 47% of those people pay payroll taxes and other taxes. We're talking just about income taxes, number one. Number two, the reason why an increasing number of people, why the tax burden is increasingly concentrated on the wealthy is that wealth is increasingly concentrated on the wealthy. The top 1% or 5% earn so much more of the income that's earned, and the middle class is being hollowed out.
Should they pay nothing? Should people pay? Shouldn't everybody contribute to the defense of the country? Everybody contribute to. I mean, this is what Gene McCarthy told me one time. He said every man should be willing to carry arms in defense of his government, should pay taxes, and should vote. Those are the three requirements of citizenship. When you got half the country's completely dropped off the rolls, you got a problem.
You get a vested interest.
They're not completely dropped off the rolls. I mean, they're paying payroll taxes. It's not like they're not paying anything.
Gene, why are you attacking Gene McCarthy?
Are they going to get attacked?
Gene, why are you attacking Gene McCarthy? Did you support the Vietnam War? Hey, really quickly, we got to go to break. Chris is going to scream at me for asking this. I'm just curious. The president's getting hammered from the left, but from progressives for caving into Republicans. It's a divided government now, right? He's got to work with the other side.
Yeah, it's a divided government. You know, many people on the left have quarreled with the president's negotiating strategy since the beginning. This is not kind of a new argument, but there have been many times when it has seemed to a lot of people he has given concessions going into a negotiation.
All right. Congressman Kevin McCarthy, thank you so much. Good to have you back with your charts and graphs.
All your stuff.
They show a new path where we cut away all the debt.
All right, there you go.
Terrific. Business before the bell with Aaron Burnett. Next.
Solved. Just like that.